Okay, let's find the equation of a line. There are quite a few ways of doing this, but I'm working this out for my year 7 group, so I'm going to pick quite a simple way of doing it. Well, as you might not know, this is the equation of a line. It always takes this form, y equal to mx plus c. You can rearrange it if you like, but generally this is what you're looking for. The m in this case is our gradient of the line, and we've talked about that, the gradient, talking about obviously the higher the gradient, the steeper the line is, and this line obviously has a positive gradient. If the line was this way, then it will have a negative gradient. Okay, so we talked a little bit about that already, about finding the gradient of a line. I'll do a quick lesson. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit again today. And the C is the y-intercept. Now, what this basically means is exactly where your line cuts the y-axis, that's exactly where your C is. So that can take a positive or negative value. All right, let's get down to it. Let's try now and find the equation of a line. So I'm going to give 2 points, and I'm going to go for 2, 4 as my first coordinate, and my second coordinate I'll go for -3, -1. Okay, so those are going to be my 2 coordinates. First things first, we can find the gradient using these 2 points, or we can just plot them and then find the gradient that way. I will do both ways. Okay, I've labeled my I've put my got my axis labeled. Now I'm going to plot these points. So the first point is x is 2 and y is 4, so that first point goes up here. The second point is x is -3 and y is -1. And that now is going to give me a lovely straight line going through those 2 points there. All right. That being said, I can clearly see that this line will have a positive gradient. I will find my gradient in 2 ways. You choose whichever one you like. The first way I'm going to go for is quite easy. I will use the I'll make a right angle triangle anywhere on this line, and I choose to make my right angle triangle there. And we know that the gradient is the difference in y over the difference in x, or in some cases, some people call it the rise over the run. And I can see the distance between here and there is 2, because it starts on 2 here and ends on 4. So the rise is 2, and the run going along here is also 2, because it starts on 0 and it ends on 2. So that's 2, and that tells me that my gradient, or my m, is equal to 1. If you're doing it without drawing a graph, the other way you can consider working it out, your gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And from my 2 coordinates here, I can make my first coordinate x1 and y1, and my second coordinate x2 and y2. And all I need to do is substitute them in there, thereby giving me y2 minus y1 is -1 is y2, take away y1, which is 4, divided by x2, which is -3, take away x1, which is 2. If you're really good at your negative numbers, you'll be able to see that -1 minus 4 is -5, and -3 minus 2 is also -5, and -5 divided by -5 is 1. So yet again, I've got the same gradient. So I know my gradient is 1. There's no two ways about it. It is 1. And so I can start forming the first part of my answer. The equation of the line is y equal to mx plus c. And so far I know my m is 1. So I can now say that my equation of the line is equal to y equal to 1x plus c. But because 1x is a bit redundant, you don't really need to write the 1. If it was a different number, you can write it, but we can leave the 1 out. Now, earlier I did say that c is where the graph cuts the y-axis. So I'll pull this down a bit, and we can clearly see that the line cuts the y-axis right there at 2. So c is definitely 2. So all I need to do now is finish this off. Replace my c with the number 2, and this is the equation of that line up there. Another way you could have gone about finding your c is by substituting one of the points in there. But because I'm just doing this for my year 7 group, I'm going to leave it here. This is how we find the equation of a line. For now, I'll show you different ways later on. Have a go at doing some questions. I hope this was pretty straightforward, and see how you get on finding the equation of a line. Remember, you can find the gradient either of the ways. You can either make your little triangle and do your rise over your run, or you can use the formula. Okay, fantastic.